Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Sabrina Lee, Director of DoD and Intelligence Community Programs at Okta. Sabrina, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
And a key part of adopting cloud services for DoD is securing access to those resources through things like Identity, Credential, and Access Management, or ICAM. I know the Defense Department has been working toward adopting sort of an enterprise ICAM architecture of sorts for several years now. What kind of progress are you seeing on that front as DoD organizations continue to adopt really a range of cloud services and ICAM solutions?
Right. Yeah, I think most agencies that I work with are really trying to adopt an enterprise ICAM strategy in order to posture themselves for a successful zero trust framework, right? So identity is a key pillar in the zero trust strategy, both at DoD and at the federal level. And so tactically, what I see them doing is really pivoting from sort of legacy ICAM, which is just about, here's your CAC and you log in to whatever resource you need, pivoting towards modern authorization and modern authentication. And what that really means is modern authentication is, are you who you say you are? And can I do that verification in a lot of different ways, in the cloud, on-prem, in a DDoS environment, in a classified environment? Can I do that based on various different factors? So I might use your CAC in some cases. I might use a biometric about you in some cases, something about your Face ID or a thumbprint, something like that. I might use a hardware token that's outside of the CAC, like a YubiKey or something like that. So pivoting towards that breadth of being able to authenticate users is really setting them up for zero trust success. And then pivoting towards modern authorization techniques, that's the second part of identity, is a really big push right now. And what that really means is being able to make decisions about what you, Justin, can access based on contextual evidence from other zero trust vendors. So an example might be you're running an endpoint detection capability on your device, and that endpoint detection capability says, hey, this device is no longer safe. Well, now I'm not going to let you in to the resource you're trying to access, right? I can make those real-time decisions based on context about you from the plethora of zero trust services that are out there, right? Because we all know there's a lot of different players in that space. So from an ICAM perspective, people are starting to think about modernizing things like that. We just had a successful use case in the DoD where someone was found to be working from an OCONUS region. And it's because those types of attributes, those types of device signals are now allowed to be sent into modern identity providers. And now I'm not just checking who you are. I'm checking what device you're coming from, what country are you coming from, maybe what training have you taken, all these attributes about you before I let you into a system. And that really postures people towards zero trust. And the last thing I guess I'll say is I see a lot of people focusing on automation. Like we have to make this easy. So interoperability with those zero trust vendors, automated interoperability, automated things like provisioning, deprovisioning users as they come in, automated federation, trusting my agency, trusting your agency, things like that. Those are all really, really big pillars that I see the DoD focusing on right now.
Got it. Yeah, and automation seems so important. DoD could never hire enough people or contractors to make those types of decisions in real time about where someone is and whether they should access a resource.
Which also goes back to why I see them pivoting towards SaaS as well. So software as a service or cloud native identity is becoming something that people are setting their sights on simply because we don't have the manpower to run these huge ICAM deployments on-prem with, a labor force that's focused on keeping the infrastructure up or keeping the software up to date. We'd rather pay those people, those contractors or government employees, to do the really sophisticated things like build hunting tools on top of ICAM or build analytics on top of ICAM. That's the really important stuff that needs to be done by the government. And vendors like us need to be keeping things available, reliable, secure, and running it for them.
Got it, yeah. And that last point is so important to an organization like the Defense Department. They obviously, those organizations have to sort of do missions in disconnected, complex environments, out to the tactical edge, as they put it. what kind of progress are you seeing there in adopting those types of constructs where DoD needs to operate?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the most interesting problem spaces for DoD. They have all of these enclaves, all of these edge devices, the tactical edge, as you call it, where they're conducting warfare, right? So that makes them different from when we service a commercial company with our product, right? So we talk with them a lot about these environments, and we, as an identity company, have to start thinking about making those kinds of investments, about working in those unique environments. And I think there's actually been major progress that we could probably touch on here, which is that there's been a big shift in the identity space over the past few years where there are open standards now. There are open protocols that allow identity vendors to talk to each other, to really easily integrate, federate, work together, et cetera. So an example might be a DDIL environment, is not perfect for someone like an Okta, for example. We're a SaaS provider. We run on the internet, right? We need a good connection. However, we can work with the identity provider on the tactical edge, be it open source, be it Active Directory, be it some other LDAP service. And that way, when the environment is disconnected, it flips to that mode. And when it reconnects, it flips to Okta seamlessly, automatically. There is some glue that needs to be built there, but because of those open standards, it's not hard anymore, right? We've broken that barrier down. And so I feel like that's really an area where federal systems integrators can shine, and where we as vendors can shine by showing how we interoperate and actually build multi-vendor solutions in this space now. You're not going to be wedded to one ICAM vendor for every problem space. If the DoD did that, if they tried to wed themselves to one vendor for every unique space, then every space would be making a trade-off, right? Your business systems would be making a trade-off because they wouldn't be able to use cloud-native, reliable, secure services like ours that have all these pre-built integrations. Your tactical edge would be making a trade-off because it would be shoving a square peg into a round hole there, right? So if you can choose the best technology for each group and then make them talk to each other, that's the best of the entire situation.
Yeah, and that federated idea seems so important because we talk about DoD as a monolith, but really it's not just DoD, it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, warfighting commands within each of those, back office commands within each of those, all making their own decisions about these types of technologies.
Yep, and even within those, I don't think that one provider, for pretty much any mission requirement, I've never seen one provider service the entire department or the entire agency. There's always niche use cases. And the trick here is that identity has gotten better at those trust protocols, those federation protocols, and it's just not as hard as it used to be. And we're doing 2 proofs of concept right now. One where we are working with a DDIL environment and proving that we can do that failover that I just talked about. And one where we're working with an existing identity provider that the DoD has had for ages, and we're able to trust it, and we got that up and running in 2 days, right? So it's like where that project probably used to take before these open standards and open APIs used to take months, we're taking days, right? So that's where the identity industry advancements really help the DoD in this problem space.
Got it. All right, well, what's next in the identity space, in the ICAM space for DoD?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we have spent a lot of time building our DoD business this past year, focusing on getting the right certifications to service the DoD market. So, just as of February 1st, we got our IL4 authorization from DISA and the ability to service IL5 applications, meaning we can be an identity provider all the way up to IL5 apps, which is great. And then as soon as we sort of achieved that milestone, what I realized is there are still other places where we can't address the DoD need, and that would mainly be the classified regions where the mission is really done, the SIPRNet and other networks, right? And so I think for me, the next investment that I want to make as a company, the next thing I want to look to on the horizon is how do I better work with the DoD to run in those environments? And so I guess my feedback on that would be I do see a path, but I think the existing DoD investments, things like the C2S contract, the C2E contract, the JWCC contract, have largely focused on the cloud service providers, right? So the Amazon, Oracle, IBM, Microsoft, whoever they might be, building the infrastructure and the platform in these spaces. But those contract vehicles have not been set up yet, I don't think, to encourage SaaS companies like us. And I don't want to just even speak identity. I mean, all the zero trust providers, if you look at, I don't know, ServiceNow, Splunk, Zscaler, Palo Alto, anybody who's trying to build a SaaS product, we all struggle with, well, how do I build it in the classified regions? I don't know how to address that problem space for DoD. It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation, right? Because I don't have a contract that allows me to build in that space, but also, why would they give me a contract? Because I don't have a capability in that space. So it's sort of a catch-22, and I think it's the same catch-22 that cloud service providers faced 10 years ago, and they've solved that, and I think the next horizon is to solve it for us SaaS vendors who run on top of the cloud service providers. So that's what I'm going to be focused on, and that's what my outreach at the executive levels of DoD is going to be based on this year.
Interesting. That's really insightful. Good to know. It sounds like the foundation might be there for classified now with these contracts that are in place, but now it's a matter of building up.
Build on top of it.
Got it. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but thanks for lending us your insights, Sabrina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks a lot for the time.
Sure. Again, my guest today was Sabrina Lee, the Director of DoD and Intelligence Community Programs at Okta. I'm your moderator, Justin Doubleday, and you're listening to Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more on the DoD Cloud Exchange.